welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us today on Mythology Cafe and our special Solstice edition. This is a extremely, and I didn't even realize how vast, but of course the second you think about it, like it makes sense, but an extremely vast and deep web of things that probably have been going on since time immemorial. It's, I was trying to think, like for the Southern Hemisphere, obviously right now is the summer solstice. So they're having a whole different experience. The mythology and everything that's happening in the Southern Hemisphere is literally the polar opposite of what's happening for us here, and vice versa when we switch into the other. So that's always something that is interesting to keep in mind, that while it seems very universal that we are all going through this time of darkness, it is not so, because there's the half of the world that's going through the time of light. So that's just interesting on its own. Like the world, in a sense, is its own yin yang, in its completeness, that we are constantly in balance with each other. So the darkness never wins, as it were, right? Because there's half of the planet that is already in the light. It's already in its full lightness. The light has won down there and the dark is winning here, and then we will switch. So it's this really interesting ebb and flow kind of throughout the planet. And there's something really kind of, as a koan, just something to kind of sit with that seems really intriguing. So we're just going to obviously focus on kind of winter solstice and what we're going through up here in the north, and traditions that have been celebrated kind of in the Northern Hemisphere for this time of year. Now, I left out far more than I could possibly have included. There's so much, right? So much. It's an incredible, and each of these is just a wormhole that you could dive in and just get effulgent riches continually forever. It was incredibly hard to choose what I'm going to include and what I'm not going to include, and what we can kind of focus on. But I tried to go with several themes and just play with certain ideas. So there will probably be something of that I didn't say out loud, which is awesome. I would love to kind of have some time towards the end where we can share our own practices and rituals. I would love to hear what you guys do, if you'd like to share. And there's just so much. So but there's some basic things that I think are really interesting that have a through line here. And as the darkest night of the year, right? It's the shortest day, it's the longest night. There's this idea that we must protect the light so that it can be reborn again. And the darkness has its own rich value, of course. This isn't about negating the darkness, right? This is about not just battling it, but embracing this is where we are. Because think of like a lot of these traditions come from a more or less Europe to Asia context, right? And what we're often celebrating. Now, there are traditions for Native Americans, for tribal peoples up throughout Canada and up through the Arctic, right? There's a lot of, that's what I mean. There's so much more than I could have possibly included in this. So there are traditions along those lines. But what I'm going to focus on is not exactly, but partly kind of our pan-Europe, Asia context. And this notion of battling the dark kind of starts with Samhain, right? Starts with the day, the celebration of the dead, where the darkness now really starts to take over. You honor the ancestors, and now the dark to this point in time on the experiential calendar really starts to be more and more of a presence, right? So it's interesting, I think, because this isn't exactly a celebration of the dead, but the ancestors and the dead play such a big role in this. And honoring the dead, where they don't take over. You have to honor them so they do not take over, take them back to the underworld so that life can move on. So just kind of keep some of that stuff in mind as we will move forward. Yeah, mythology, ritual, and praxis. So I kind of this is kind of the general idea of what we're going to talk about. This illustration brings me great joy. There are, solstice monsters and, like beings and creatures from the underworld and the darkness that continually come up in these kind of situations. I didn't even get to any of that stuff, but again, this is a whole milieu of different ideas of the dark and the light. And this is a time where the darkness has won or is winning, or is about to, and everything, all of these festivals, all of these rituals are in combat with that idea, so there's monsters, there's witches, there's, you name it, like creatures from the underworld are walking around, it's intense. This is an intense time. So there's, I think, I don't know if that guy just threw that baby in that dragon's mouth, it's unclear, but or if he fell in there. So we're going to talk about Yule, obviously. I love me a good Saturnalia. Birth of the light is a really interesting idea. And then I picked a couple festivals and celebrations from kind of different parts of the world than we normally think of for this. And of course, ancient architecture that honors it. So again, let's just setting up the darkness. Well, there's an astronomical reason why we experience the winter solstice. There it is at the top right. It seems that metaphorically, there was a growing uneasiness from harvest to midwinter, where the battle was being won evermore by the dark and by the dead. The solstice was the tipping point, the night where the dark made its final stand, and only by sheer willpower did not extinguish the light. Through celebration, gathering, ritual, feasting, rich and nourishing foods, and the dark night of motherhood, the darkness was kept at bay. Time could move forward. The fertility of the land was assured, and a community could survive through the harsh winter months. And again, we've got to think about, we celebrate these things now as kind of an honoring of ancient traditions in one sense. But at the time, these were really important to a society. It was a time where they were growing their own food. If the land was not fertile, they would die, so these were like literal life and death scenarios. And so these rituals and celebrations were taken extremely seriously. So Yule. Yule, this is another one of those where we could have talked for an hour just about Yule, but we'll keep it short. Yule is Old Norse. I love this, the name, the sound, the word. Yule comes from this Yulnir, which was a name for Odin, right? He of the Yule. And it's celebrated in midwinter. So there's kind of this time from mid-December to early January that seems to be the sweet spot for all solstice celebrations. Again, we now know an astronomical time that solstice actually happens. Now, it was today at whatever your time zone is. There's an actual specific time the solstice happens, right? Before, it was just this general sense that oh shit, the days are really short. And I mean, if you're living in the far up north in northern Europe, it's no joke. You're getting 24 hours of darkness practically, and if you've ever been up there, I was in Denmark in the summertime, very close to the summer solstice. And I can tell you it's not kidding. These things are real when you're actually living in a situation where the sun does not set except for about, an hour and a half at 5 a.m. So, and I can only imagine what the dark version of that seemed like. So in this kind of perpetual darkness, right, where the sun barely like pops its head over the horizon, this was a real intense scenario. The dead walked, right? If you've ever played God of War, you know what draugrs are, but that's what they're called. They're the walking dead, essentially. So this wonderful image in the middle is Odin with his horde kind of going across the sky and you know, hunting and finding all of the dead and dragging them back into the underworld. So there were sacrifices, there was feasting, there was just a whole time of merriment to try again to ward off this perpetual darkness. An interesting kind of celebration amongst this was this Mundranit, Night of the Mother. So there was a kind of three goddesses, or, you know, now we kind of think of it as like a triple goddess, right? In her three aspects of maiden, mother, crone. And this idea of birth and motherhood will also be a continuation through a lot of these different festivals. So this notion that, you know, it's kind of the darkest right before the light comes, right? This idea of you know, I mean, to be really graphic, that there's a baby in there and it's not visible, and then suddenly it is, you know, and like it's the same kind of thing with the sun. There's like this darkness right before birth, right? And so I think there was this correlation of this birthing process with bringing in kind of the fertility of the land. And then of course, so Yule, because it was so broadly celebrated, became Christianized in the kind of mid 900s AD. And this king Hakon, you know, just kind of, you know, wanted to, you know, be the cool kid on the block and bring in the Christian celebrations, but because his entire country was doing Yule festivities, he just kind of put them in the same time. So of course, Yule has become a standard for modern pagan celebrations. Wicca, of course, is the rebirth of the Great Horned One, or as you can see in that picture, the Holly King, and LaVey, Satanism, really kind of put it on the map, you know, in the 60s, 70s, as an alternative for the Christian narrative. So this year, the specific dates are the 21st through the 1st. Saturnalia. So this was celebrated the 17th through the 23rd in the Julian calendar in Rome and the Roman world, right? And the Roman world was, you know, in its height, North Africa, in through the Middle East, in through, you know, Western Asia, up through pretty much almost, well, through Germany, you know, through France into Britain, right? So that is extensive. So you kind of think of this time very similarly to Yule, right? Except we're now celebrating, instead of Odin, we are celebrating Saturn, which for them was the god of agriculture, time, and wealth. So the Romans kind of took the Greek Kronos and put him in a Saturn. So we kind of did a little combo of gods there. But so agriculture, time, and wealth. So Saturn is really interesting astrologically also, because it is the outermost planet that you can see with your eyeballs when you're staring into the sky. And so Saturn has this order keeping ability, right? It's not just time, wealth, agriculture, but there's the order of the world literally is within Saturn's scope. So ordering is a really interesting idea here, because Saturnalia was the opposite. It was a time of role reversals, of disorder, of partying, of, you know, where the people's servants could, you know, pretend to be the lords, where, you know, everything, there was kind of a mock king elected, you know, everything was just reversed. So it was a time out of time for, you know, about a week, you know, essentially. And this moment of something that was also kind of incorporated into this, which is also really interesting, that was then, of course, later Christianized, was this Dies Natalis Solis Invictus, the birth of the unconquerable sun on the 25th. So again, this notion of through chaos, because really what we're celebrating in Saturnalia is utter chaos, right? Chaos is generally the dark mother, or the darkness itself is chaos, right? Everything is born from the darkness. So through chaos, the unconquerable light is born, right? So it's this very same mythological theme, just a slightly different version. I thought this was interesting. I never heard of this before. Lua Saturni is mother destruction. She required sacrifice. So instead of actual human heads, people would make effigies of human heads and give it to her. And she would also receive dead gladiators during this time. So sounds like, very much like a Kali sort of figure. Randomly, we have been, Kali is really making a presence in our lives. Like I'm not even kidding. In the last week, Michael and I have received 2 Kali statues, 2, just out of the blue. Like someone just gave us one and the other one just arrived in the mail. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but it's an interesting time. So mother destruction is making her presence known on the solstice. I love this. The birth of the light. Definitely the Kali Yuga, right? For sure. So birth of the light, right? So now we've come from chaos. We have this time of intense utter darkness, or the celebration of the dark chaos, where Saturn's rule is kind of upended for a moment. And then we have this idea of the birth of the light. And when the dead come a knocking, the light better be rocking, right? So it's like you need something to combat all the dead that have slowly crept out over the last several weeks. And it is the light. So that looks like several different things in several different cultures. These are just some of my favorites. Obviously, the Christ child. I barely talk about that at all. It's just, that's the one that I feel like everyone knows the most about. So we're not really going there, but I adore this painting by Raphael. She's so epic. Like, look at that, like wind blowing her stuff. She's like, she looks concerned, but obviously like that celebration of a time of great darkness. There was no room at the inn, right? It's like he was born in a stable. All of this stuff is also this kind of notion of chaos, this darkness, this moment where normal order doesn't seem to work. And then this baby is born, this moment of light appears, and with the Star of Bethlehem, everything. There's so many things that are astrological and astronomical about light and star and shining and brilliance, right? In this time of the greatest darkness. Frigg and Balder are very similar. That's not like that's just kind of a photo that I thought like works really well as a foil, but Frigg and Balder had a similar kind of scenario where Frigg was Odin's wife, and she gave birth to this beautiful baby boy that was like the light, right? Everybody just adored him, which I think probably made like everyone loved him except Loki, of course, because it's Loki. And so Balder was the light, the shining one, the brilliance, and like everyone fawned over him because he was just the nicest and sweetest, and he sounds awful. So, but Balder kept having these prophetic dreams that he was going to die. And so Odin goes to the underworld, to the sorceress, was like, what's going on? And she was like, well, you've got to have everything on earth vow not to kill him. That's how you don't have him die, And so Frigg goes around and makes sure that everybody vows, everyone, plants, animals, rocks, you name it. And so Loki goes up and he's like, hey, Frigg, like, did everybody vow, not to kill him? And she was like, yeah, totally. All except for the mistletoe, because it's just the mistletoe. And like, what can mistletoes do? And he was like, oh, okay, cool. So Loki goes and makes a spear out of mistletoe, because mistletoe is like a big bush. So like he makes like a spear out of the trunk of it, and then hands it to I can't remember his name. He hands it to this blind giant. And because now like Balder right now is protected against everything. So like the gods' favorite new game is to throw shit at Balder because it just bounces off and doesn't hurt him. So they're like just imagine everyone's just like, it's like a party game. Everyone's like throwing stuff at him and they're like, he's still alive. And then so the blind giant throws this mistletoe spear at Balder and he dies. But it's mistletoe, right? Like mistletoe is a Yule, this time of year plant. So he actually dies at this time of year. So the light dies this time of year, which is really interesting. So it's a little bit of a reversal. Mithras is a very interesting character. He's a Persian deity that was adopted by Romans as a mystery school throughout kind of the Roman world, but he also is a deity of the sun. So Mithras in the Persian language, but Mitra in Hindu. Mitra is actually, I want to say it's the light right before the sun actually rises is Mitra, because the sun god is someone else, but the light of the sun at various times are different deities. So, there's kind of obviously like a lot of like correspondences there. And there is slaughtering a bull. Amaterasu is another deity. She is the sun goddess, Japanese sun goddess. And same with her story, she got offended or scared. Her brother was wreaking havoc. So she hid in a cave and all the light disappeared. And so they were trying to get her out, and she didn't come out. And, finally they were like, okay, like we have to trick her. I don't know what else to do. There's something really similar with a Demeter myth where they actually had to like trick her to come out of a cave. Same thing to like get the spring to come back, right? So if it sounds familiar, it is. So they put a mirror outside the cave and they all start making a fuss over this mirror. And so she's listening and she's hearing all of the gods and goddesses outside making a fuss. So she peeks out and she's like, well, what are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, this is going to be your replacement. Like, she's so beautiful. She's so amazing. And so she's like, huh? And so she walks out and she sees herself in this mirror and she's just taken aback because she's never seen her reflection before. And so, she kind of stops for a second and kind of the scene you're seeing there is right when she sees herself in the mirror, they nab her and close the cave and she's not allowed to go back in ever again. So there's this other, not a birth of the light per se, but a recovery of the light. And then here's St. Lucy down below that we're going to talk extensively about during our Praxis, because I absolutely have fallen in love with her. She's an interesting character. She's a Christian martyr around the 280s AD, so total Roman times before kind of the Christianity really took hold, right? So she was a young girl. She was betrothed to a Roman man. She pledged her virginity to Christ, and she did all this stuff. She helped the poor, so she is, if you've ever seen a picture of anybody wearing a wreath around their head with candles in it, that's her deal. So St. Lucy's Day is December 13th, and it is celebrated throughout Europe and the Catholic world. It's a very important saint day. And so we'll talk about that in more detail later. But essentially, so she's holding eyeballs. Normally she's like, there's other pictures I've got later where she's holding eyeballs on a plate. And sometimes she has a knife through her throat. So it's, gotta love Catholic martyr imagery. I sure do. So she's an interesting one because she was kind of this light bringer. So she was a help to the poor. But also through her purity and through her godliness, she became a saint, and her eyes were gouged out and they magically came back. That's why she's holding eyeballs there. So she interestingly kind of embodies, as a feminine, embodies this Christian light. And the December 13th is celebrated both in a really interesting way. From the 13th to Christmas, there's 12 days. So 12 days of Christmas, right? Like I said, we'll go further into her and her practices later. But I love her imagery because it is so horrifically gruesome. Like, who the heck holds like eyeballs on a plate? It's horrifying. Okay, ancient architecture. I love, yeah, totally, Veronica. Like that look she's giving her own eyeballs is like terrifying. Like, ancient architecture. So again, like, this was a lived reality. We're so cushy in our homes, so many of us, and we're so lucky, for all of the things that we have. We should all be grateful all the time for everything, because not that long ago, people really lived in the elements and were subject to the world around them, and in many ways, potentially our separation from that world is part of the problem, but it's also just nice to have heat and running water. So that, there's got to be a balance. But ancient architecture was created to honor these moments in time, right? So here's another one. I could have had like 10 pages of just this. There's so many all over the world. These are some of my favorites. This Fox Mound, the Cahokia Mounds in Illinois from the Mississippian culture. They're just incredible. If you don't know about them, please look them up. There is a huge culture of sophisticated mound builders that we barely know anything about right here in the United States. I think everybody knows them from all over the rest of the world, but we have a whole history of them right here also. And Graham Hancock in his most recent book goes extensively into these mounds, but this is one of them where the winter solstice rises up over this very particular mound. Right below that is one of my favorite places I've ever been to is Tulum. I was lucky enough to go to Chichen Itza. Also, I love Chichen Itza, but something about Tulum just really was magical. And here is one of the buildings where on the solstice, right at the moment the sun passes through, it releases this gorgeous radiant starlight. Like, look how, that's incredible, right? And it's like, that was built that way. And this is tall, it's above the trees. So, I mean, just the engineering to get that exactly correct is, mind-boggling. Like, I can't even imagine doing that today. Stonehenge, of course, I think there's always a live stream from Stonehenge where you can actually see the sunrise on the winter solstice. And as it comes up through some of those plinths, or what are they called? And then here is at the Temple of Karnak also, where the sun illuminates this corridor at a very specific time at the sunrise. So I think that's, I don't know exactly what we could do there are things that are built today also that kind of do this, which is really interesting. So this isn't a lost art. It's just, we just don't kind of gather in these ways that we used to for these spaces. But there is actually architecture, modern architecture that still kind of does this, which is really cool. Okay, now for a couple festivals that I thought were pretty interesting. So this is, I'm going to butcher this. So if anybody speaks Chinese, I'm so sorry. It's the Dongji Festival. What I love about this has been celebrated for 2,000 years. So Dongji is the name for solstice. And it was discovered by a wise man who, I love this, who was like playing around with a sundial like 2,500 years ago, right? And then, so this celebration is almost bigger than the Lunar New Year in China. So the whole deal here in both the north and the south of China, it's celebrated slightly different, but very much is the same kind of idea here, is that you gather with family, you worship the ancestors, and you feast. I mean, it's like, that sounds amazing, right? It's like, I mean, that is in a weird way what our kind of not what kind of like a Catholic Christian celebration of Mass is, but what we actually do is we get together, we feast, maybe we remember our great grandparents or our grandparents or whoever can't be with us, give them a toast or something, and we feast, right? Like that's how we celebrate this stuff. And there's something inherently human about that if you've noticed runs through all of these different things. So specifically, because again, like we're lucky that we live inside, not everybody does. So this is a time of cold and a time of lean, right? So by gathering and eating rich foods, which I love that the foods that are eaten in this festival are yang foods, so the warm foods to counteract the yin, the cold, right? So it's stuff that's meaty, it's fatty, it's got a lot of garlic, it's got a lot of ginger, it sounds amazing, and so those are the things you eat with your family. So you nourish the body, right? You take a moment, you eat all the shit you need, and then you're able to literally survive through the rest of the lean times into spring, right? So it's super important as an actual lived reality, but it's also this wonderful kind of metaphor for what this time of year means, kind of for humanity on the Northern Hemisphere. Plus all that food looks so delicious. So here's one that I just wanted to throw in here because it's fascinating that this is not, we kind of think of solstice, especially if like we think of Yule, right? There's something about it that's like, it's ancient. It's actually, I mean, how we celebrate Yule today is not ancient at all, but like the idea of Yule is ancient. Christmas is fairly old, right? And that's not ancient, but it's pretty old. It's been around for a while. But this is an ever evolving scene of ritual and myth and story. And so this Pancha Ganapati is new. It was invented by Satguru Sivaya Subramuni Swami, say that 10 times fast, 1985. Cool factoid. Michael reminded me that when we were in Kauai in Hawaii, we went to a incredible Hindu temple, and it was this specific Satguru that created that temple there. So that's kind of cool. And so this guy created this Pancha Ganapati holiday in 1985. So it's extremely new. Basically, what you do it is a Ganesh celebration. So interestingly enough, this other that I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce. In Sri Lanka, this time is celebrated as the time of Ganesh, right? So who is Ganesh? What does he do? Just super fast. He is the remover of obstacles. It's one of my favorite mantras. We say it all the time. It's Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, right? So it's like you can kind of like, there's a mood there where it's like a little elephant like moving around and like knocking shit over, So that's his mood. He's removing obstacles, and he is the patron of arts and culture. So all of the good things, all of the abundance is him too. So he's going to knock shit out of the way, and he's going to bring in all the good things. So thematically, he is spot on for this time of year. And so I love that. And so the way they're celebrated is that you get your Ganesh in the middle of the room, you dress him in different colors each day. And there's kind of these different color meanings for the 5 days that is celebrated. And the family does different types of, nice, Rosie. And the family does these different types of celebrations and honors and sadhanas each day to both help clear the space and to invite blessings and love and harmony to not only themselves, but kind of the community at large. So I just think that's really neat. Plus Ganesh is awesome. Okay. So I think we're gonna take a little break, but here's what you're gonna need if you want to do this. Bowl of water, salt, mix them together. So I invite everybody to take a nice, big, deep breath. I have been practicing this breath for several weeks now, and I have found it to be very helpful. So I'm going to share with you a breath you can do to balance your vagus nerve. Vagus nerve, it runs kind of all over the place through all of your major organs in your body. And it's, it's kind of how if you have like a major spinal cord injury, all your stuff still works because it's the vagus nerve that actually like runs the show in a weird sort of way. So this breath balances your vagus nerve and kind of makes everybody be on the same page, if you will. So if you're sitting, kind of feel your seat, and you can put your feet down flat on the floor. If you're sitting cross-legged, that's fine too. However you're sitting is fine. But if you've got your feet down, just kind of plant them firmly so you feel the bottom of your toes and your pads and everything is touching. Big inhale. Just exhale that out. And now we're going to do an inhale to the count of 4 through your nose. So inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. Exhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold it. 1, 2. Inhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale and hold. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And just take a big deep breath in and let it all out. Just see if you feel a little difference in your body, if everything feels a little more connected. I would love to invite in the spirits of the 4 corners, the spirits from the north, from the south, from the east, and from the west, the spirits of the sky, the spirits of the galaxies and the stars, and the spirits of the earth. May you all be present. May you all bear witness. May you all help and guide us in our paths today and every day, and we thank you. May it be so. Now, if we've got your bowl of water, you can do this anytime. If you've got your bowl of water with salt, this is kind of a nice water and earth element. So both of these elements are really good at taking in and transmuting. So what we're going to do is look in your water, and you're going to breathe your fears into the water. Don't worry, the water can take it. It can hold it all. So just take a big deep breath. And breathe everything you're afraid of into that water. Now, I know that wasn't just it. So another big deep breath. Everything you're holding, everything that's just tickling the back of your brain, breathe it in there. It can hold it. Breathe it in. One more time. Good. Now, we're going to hold this. This water is going to hang on to all your fears through this whole thing. And we're going to set this water aside. So either if you're around a window, you can put the water next to a window somewhere where it's receiving light. It doesn't have to be super direct, just as long as it's getting some light. If you've got a candle, if you've got anything, that works too. Or if you've got a desk lamp, that's fine. Just we're gonna let the water cook with the light and let that light work on those fears kind of while we're working on everything else. And we're going to come back to that water in a little bit. Okay. Now, I would love to invite Lisette to share her incredible offering with you all today.
Now I should be sharing sound. Can you hear me from the echoey depths? Oh, good. Oh, good. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. So, a good portion of this piece is going to exist at about this level. I want to make sure that this is sounding clear to you all. Some of it gets a little bit louder, some of it's a little bit quieter. We're going to keep it about here with our drone. Sound good? Perfect. Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. I'll have you settle in whatever way you'd like to during this piece, this eulogy piece for the year that we are plunging down into the darkness. This journey will take you at about this tempo for the next 15 minutes or so get yourself nice and comfortable. Itself around me, the mystery. Ooh, holy shadow. Oh, death. Oh, death, won't you spare me over for another year? Oh, holy shadow. I was born with shadow as my light. Oh, holy shadow. Deepest night. Oh, holy shadow. Darkest night, I carry the candle. Bless my sight. Oh, holy shadow. this blue pearl, from this blue pearl in the center of the ocean of darkness. Oh, holy shadow. I am calling out from this blue world that circles our star like a moth in the infinite darkness. Oh, holy shadow. We lived our life in the sun, and now our day is done as we turn from our star into the infinite darkness. Oh, holy shadow, deepest night. There is a moth in my chest that keeps the light near, who flies without fear into the open and infinite darkness. Oh, holy shadow. We trust in the unknown, where we cannot see, where we sow our seeds in the soil of darkness. Oh, holy shadow, darkest night. Life stirs in the belly of darkness. Oh, holy shadow. Oh, infinite shadow, pierced with light. I was born with shadow as my light. Oh, holy shadow, infinite night. I carry the candle, bless my sight. So come step on this ship as we follow the flow to get locked in the ice at the center of the ocean of darkness. Oh, holy shadow. I am reaching out now with both hands down into these waters of wonder. Oh, holy shadow. Now I pull my hands up with a silvery fish, a fish from the depths of the infinite ocean. Oh, holy shadow. the fish, she sings a song of where we come from the unknown of the eternal wonder. She sings, I was born with shadow as my light. Oh, holy shadow, deepest night, I carry the candle in my eyes. Oh, death. Oh, death, won't you spare me over for another year? Well, what is this takes hold of me? Let my soul float up to heaven and my body float at sea. Oh, oh, holy shadow. Oh, I was born with shadow as my light. Oh, holy shadow. Darkest night, I carry the candle. Bless my sight. So as we bury the day that gives birth to light from this polar night on the edges of the fertile darkness, oh, oh, holy shadow, we spill the light from our chests to keep the moth near, where we fly without fear into the wondrous darkness. Oh, holy shadow. I am calling out from this blue pearl at the center of the ocean of darkness. Oh, holy shadow, I was born with shadow as my light. Oh, holy shadow, deepest night, I call you to your candle. Bless your sight, I call you to your candle. Bless your eyes, I call you to your candle. Bless the night, I call you to your candle. Darkest night, I am calling with my candle. Like to like, I am calling with my candle, dark to light. Thank you.
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and bringing your light into this space. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. If you'd like to say anything about it, I invite you to speak to it if you'd like to.
I'd love to. Are you picking up my voice regularly now?
Mhm.
Oh, neat. I did it. Thank you. I'm just switching over. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you liked it and that it transported you somewhere entrancing and soothing. As ever, Christina, whenever we collaborate, there is always such beautiful magic that happens without our engineering. It just happens, just so it goes. So I knew when you invited me to create a eulogy for my favorite day of the year. I love the longest night. I felt really called to really bring my love and passion for the darkness to it. Thank you. Would you like me to talk about my process on it? We have a little bit of time for that, or is that what you're interested in? Yeah. I shared this with you, Christina and Kathleen. I began this piece in dialogue with a documentary, a NOVA documentary about a research vessel that lodged itself in the polar ice for the polar night for a year. And they're beautiful and kind of heart-stopping expressions of what it was like to be in absolute infinite blackness, that the world beyond where their light fell was just utter interminable dark. That's how I kicked off the piece. I like to co-create in strange collaboration with other media, and that's where I started. And did some interpoetry writing with that documentary piece. And I have been singing and loving murder ballads for truly my whole life. And if a eulogy isn't a chance to sing "Oh Death," I'm just not really sure what is. So I knew that that would be woven in, and I took it from there and let myself get in a little bit of a trance to think about what this day means for us on the planet, to be experiencing the darkness, just to turn from our little star and to just become one with all of that darkness is really extraordinary. So that's where I came from. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It was very meaningful for me to play that for you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Neon. I was going to ask you to put it in the chat. we gotta get that documentary going. Okay. While we're all in an altered state, this is a good place to start. So I think he's in here. I'm looking for him. Michael, are you in? Can you hear me?
I am here.
Oh, hi. Coming to you from a different room in the house
Far away.
down the hall. I would love to continue this incredible mood that Lisette has put us in with this. Is calling it a dirge incorrect? I feel like that was such a, that was such an incredible kind of, just a moment. I love that feeling of that repetition. And the space that kind of tonality can get one in. So now that we're here, thank you for bringing us into the depths. I would love to introduce you all to Michael Taft, who in fact is my husband. Like I said, that's why it's not just some guy down the hall. It's like we live together. So, and Michael is a, well, I'll introduce you and then you can introduce yourself probably better. But Michael's a meditation teacher, and he primarily works. Well, Michael, can you introduce yourself? Why don't you can do the thing.
I'm Michael Taft. Let's
Nice.
meditate. That's my introduction. Let's go ahead and, because I don't want to leave the mood that Lisette got us in. It's so wonderful. So let's just continue with our practice here, okay, for this solstice day or night or whatever time it is in the world where you're at. And what I'd like to do is have you do this meditation with me. This will be a guided meditation. And I'd like to have you do it lying down if possible. Okay, so this isn't going to be like sitting upright, in a meditation center kind of meditation. We're going to do more of a guided journey kind of thing. And so it's better if you wish, if it's comfortable for you and you don't mind not seeing the camera, laying down. And best would be to lay down with your lower back flat and your knees up, right? It feels really good to lay down that way. You can put your knees over a pillow or whatever so that they're supported. If not, just laying in corpse pose is fine and certainly appropriate. So I'll just give you a second. If you want to keep painting or, keep looking at the screen or whatever, that's fine too. But I really encourage you all to lay back and just let your mind release and open. And this is a guided meditation that's also a guided journey. So it allows you to just kind of relax your mind really deeply. And so let's begin simply with slow breathing. So I want you to do long, slow breathing, deep belly breathing, where sort of like what Christina had you do, but I'm not going to count. I just want you to do whatever's comfortable for you. You do, a nice, slow, deep in-breath that fills from the belly, deep in-breath. And then an out-breath that's longer than the in-breath. It can be a little bit longer, or really, once you get into it, it can start to be quite a bit longer than the in-breath. So that out-breath, we're just releasing for as long as is comfortable. Don't let it be uncomfortable. Really allow it to feel really nice. And then breathe in very, very, very deeply. And then let's do a nice, long, extended out-breath. And if you want to, this is optional, you can do ujjayi breathing, especially on the out-breath. Ujjayi breathing is where you tense your throat. So if you were talking, it would sound like that. But of course, you're not talking. You're just breathing. And so it's going like that. I don't know if you can hear it in the microphone. But that kind of breath, the ujjayi breath, allows you to have much more control over your in-breath and out-breath. So especially on that out-breath, doing the ujjayi breath, you can make the out-breath be quite long. And that's what we want. We want, of course, to take in that lovely in-breath, giving us life, but that out-breath, the release and the relaxing and the letting go on that out-breath is what we're really trying to tune into here. So I want you on your long out-breath, again, only as long as is comfortable. I want you on your long out-breath to just totally let go of everything. Let go of all worries, let go of all problems, let go of all tension, let go of all fear, but let go of everything else too. Just thoughts about life, thoughts about the world, things that are going on, stuff you have to do, problems, concerns, even positive things. We're just letting that all go on that out breath, just draining away, draining away, draining away on the out breath. And then the in breath, we're filling ourselves with that sweetness of life, the joy of the in breath, but really then just savoring the release, the letting go, the letting go, the letting go on the out breath. I'm going to be quiet for a moment and have you do this for a few minutes silently. Okay? So just keep releasing, just keep letting go for a couple minutes here. Good. Now, as you continue releasing on your next out breath, let all the muscles of your face just release and relax and let go. All the tension drains out of your face and head. Any fixed expression or mask just melts. And especially all the muscles around your eyes and your eyelids release and relax and let go. In your cheeks and mouth and lips and tongue release and relax and let go and become very, very, very soft and open. And especially around your eyes and your eyelids, have them be so relaxed that you can't even open your eyes, because if you tried to open your eyes, you would have to tense them back up. And so without tensing them back up, notice you can't even open them. They're so relaxed, right? So they're very, very, very relaxed. And on each out breath, let all the remaining tightness or tension in the face and the head just drain away. And notice that that then allows the throat and neck to release and relax and let go. You can keep doing the ujjayi breath if you wish, but you can also just relax your throat muscle. That was doing that if you want to. Either way is fine. Allow your shoulders to release and your hands and arms become like wet noodles. They're so relaxed. Fingers are like wet noodles. Wrists are like wet noodles. Hands and arms are just like utterly limp, not ready to do anything, utterly relaxed. And notice now that as your head and your shoulders and your neck and your arms and hands are so relaxed, that allows you to just utterly and completely, deeper than you've ever done before, just drop now into a much more relaxed and open place. where you notice that your chest muscles are relaxing and your upper back muscles are relaxing. Your diaphragm is releasing, all on an out breath, letting go, letting go, letting go. Any tension draining away into the earth who drinks up the tension, and from that creates more life. And you just allow that tension to drain away, allowing your belly now to release and relax and let go, and your kidney region in the back behind the belly to release and relax and let go, and all the guts inside relaxing and opening, and even your hips releasing and relaxing and opening, so that your whole head and arms and torso now are just deeply, deeply still, deeply calm, open, and empty of any tension, empty of any worry or concern, and instead just utterly bathing in this warm, peaceful relaxation, so much so that it just allows you now to even more completely and even more fully and even more totally and even more satisfyingly just drop now into a more relaxed, open place where everything is peaceful. And again, you notice your hips relaxing and opening, and your thighs releasing, knees relaxing, calves and shins releasing and opening, ankles relaxing, feet releasing tension into the earth, and your hips and legs and feet relaxing and opening completely, so that you notice now that your whole body from top to bottom is utterly and completely, utterly relaxed. And this allows you now to find in your mind, in the deepest core of your mind, a spot of total melted liquid mercury that's just completely relaxed and open, utterly free and open and reflecting like a mirror. And just allow that freedom and openness and mirror-like quality to just be so peaceful, utterly without effort, so relaxed, completely aware, completely awake, and utterly without doing. Any sense of a doer or doing just melts into this liquid mercury that just reflects and just mirrors perfectly. It's utterly awake and relaxed. And in this place of perfectly open, relaxed mind, notice that we can find a spot where there's simply a kind of spacious, open, vast nothingness that is both tremendously free, tremendously void, and yet at the same time ripe with possibility. But the first thing we notice in this place is that there's nothing here except spaciousness and openness and freedom, but all things have gone dark, all things have gone still, all things have gone into lying fallow. All things are at rest. All mental images are at rest. All mental talk is completely still. All emotional sensations are utterly still. We've found a place of both complete awakeness and utter vacuous, nothing like stillness, where we can truly release, truly, fully, all the way relax, fully find our nourishment and our rejuvenation and our life force and our creativity. Long ago, people learned that lead and silver are often found together in nature. If you find lead ore, you're going to find silver ore. They tend to be together. And they noticed that this mirrors the relationship between Saturn and the moon, lead being the metal of Saturn and silver being the metal of the moon. And Saturn and the moon have an interesting relationship. The moon's period is 28 days, Saturn's period is 28 years. And Saturn is that lying fallow, and the moon is the tremendous force of creativity, of giving life, of giving birth, of bringing forth all the new crops, all the new life, all the new creatures. And Saturn and the moon go together, they need each other. And in this vast, spacious, dark stillness, we're really touching into the Saturn. And the deeper and more completely we touch into the Saturn, the more big and bright and beautiful and strong our full moon will be when she comes out in her part of the cycle. And so it's fascinating because this Saturn period, oftentimes Saturn is equated with death and old age and so on, but Saturn is also the rest. Saturn is the rejuvenation, deep, deep, deep in sleep. Saturn is the rejuvenation, deep, deep, deep in the bardo between lives. Saturn is here where we're wide open, completely relaxed, utterly void, and just soaking in rejuvenation, soaking in nutrition, soaking in that stillness, that perfect stillness from which all life and all creativity comes. And so, in this moment of this very particular moment that only comes once a year of the winter solstice, we have a special opportunity, a particular opportunity to just really deeply plug into, really completely and totally access this power of stillness and rejuvenation and peace and healing. So I want you to just let go entirely now into whatever stillness, whatever darkness, whatever deep and total lying fallow is available to you right now. And simply allow yourself to let go into that. If you fall into a dream, that's wonderful. If you fall asleep, that's wonderful. If your mind just rests, that's wonderful. And let's just be together in the stillness now for a few minutes, utterly at peace, utterly relaxing utterly rejuvenating, utterly still. And as you continue to rest in this womb of the void, I want you to just allow your friend, Death, to join you here. Death is already here, but I want you to welcome your own death in this place. And notice if you have any resistance to doing that, that's some tension. So just let that tension go and let your friend, Death, be here with you now. Again, the more totally you can simply relax and be at ease with Death in this place, the more vibrant and joyous and creative and life-giving will be the embracing of life, that time of the moon, as we come out of our rest. So simply relax in this place of stillness and notice that this is the home of Hades. This is the home of death. And if you're good friends with death, you can relax here. You can even go deeper into peace, deeper into letting go, deeper into the womb of the void here. Excellent. Now into this blackness, this void, this darkness, allow to arise in the mind's eye a bright full moon. a beautiful bright full moon against this deep three-dimensional darkness. And the moon is radiating love and light, joy and birth, creativity and community. And just feel the healing and peaceful and sweet light of that full moon falling on your mind, healing it even further, and also giving rise to the first little hints of growth, the first little hints of creativity, the first little hints of birth. And because the full moon is always reflecting the light of the sun, see now in your mind's eye, on the left, a bright full moon, and on the right, a brilliant noonday sun in summer. So you're seeing two lights, the two lights in the sky, full moon and noonday sun, side by side, calling you back into the world, calling you back into the body, calling you back into the new year, calling you into the June summer solstice. And notice the joy that comes up when we see this bright, brilliant sun and this delicious full moon. And continuing to breathe deeply, we notice now that our in-breath takes in this life-giving force of the sun and the moon, takes in the sweet amrit, the ambrosia, the elixir of life and creativity, takes in this sense of vivaciousness, the greening, viriditas, as Hildegard of Bingen called it, the force of life. And because the mind and body are so relaxed and open, we take in this life force without any tightness, without any rejection, without any pushing away. We take it in utterly and totally and deeply, like breathing in air after holding our breath. And we notice our hands coming back to life with the force of creativity, our feet coming back to life with the power of physical energy. And in our mind's eye, the sun and the moon come together into one light. An electron-colored light, silver gold. And that silver gold light pours into our belly and fills us with life force, and it pours into our heart and fills us with love and joy and kindness and caring and community. And it pours into our minds and fills us with wisdom and clarity and brilliance. And then these three lights, the light of life force and the light of love and kindness and the light of wisdom, all gather in our heart. And even the external light of the sun and the moon comes and gathers on an in-breath in the heart. So all the light is beaming in our heart, beaming in all directions. Now sharing that life force, that health, that strength, that playfulness and spontaneity with all beings in all directions, sharing the love and kindness and caring and community with all beings in all directions, sharing the wisdom and clarity and brilliance of mind with all beings in all directions. And really allowing that to just pour forth and pour forth and pour forth, filling our entire being, and in fact, the entire world, and in fact, the entire universe, and in fact, all universes with love and kindness and joy and wisdom and clarity and playfulness and spontaneity. And then on the next in-breath, we can just open our eyes and begin to move our hands and feet as we come back into our regular everyday bodies, but with completely rejuvenated, transformed sense of body and mind and heart as we end this solstice meditation for now. So very, very slowly and being very gentle with yourself, feel free to sit up. If you're asleep, then you probably need the rest. So just stay resting. Otherwise, we will, in a moment, continue the solstice program with Christina. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. That was incredible. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
I'm just down the hall.
I know.
Super powerful. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you again for bringing us into that darkness, into that place, and starting to begin the rebirth process of holding and keeping the light safe as we enter into this new year. So if you have your water dish, this water has gone through that journey. What? This water has gone through that journey with us. So the fears that were once in this water have been transmuted, not only by whatever light it has been exposed to, but through this journey into the underworld and back out again. So take the water and now think about the veritas, right? The veritas, the greening, the hopes, the blossomings, the creativity, the creations, everything that we would like to bring forward as the light grows in this coming time. So shall our hopes, our creations, our creativities grow. And now all of that is in this water, brewing and surging and ready for life. So I'd like you to take your hand and anoint yourself. I like to do kind of third eye. I like doing a throat. I like doing a heart chakra. And you can kind of flick a little bit over your shoulders, a little salt for the devil so he doesn't feel left out. And may that growth, creativity, beauty, greening
that you bring into the world fully manifest itself as the sun, as the light returns. May the light and creativity grow and blossom and bloom for you. May it be so. With that, I would like to release the spirits of the earth, the spirits of the galaxies and the universe, the spirits of the sky, all the spirits of the four corners from the west, the east, the south, and the north. May you all return and rejoice. Thank you for participating in our ritual. And thank you for your guidance and your support and your love through this process. May you always be there for us when we need it. May it be so. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to take very short, just a quick reset break, little song break. And then I would love to move forward into Praxis. So now that we've taken a journey through the underworld, let's do some stuff in this world to help consecrate all of that which we are putting forth into the growing of the light. So I will play a quick song, do a little jiggle if you're in the mood, or just stay nice and grounded and focused, and we will hop back in 5 minutes. Okay. Yoo-hoo. All right, so Praxis. Now that we've gone through the ritual, next step is how do we bring forth these energies? Hello, everyone who is just joining. If you're just joining, thank you for being here. Happy solstice. How do we consecrate these things? Now, this is another one of those. There's more ways to do this than there are not ways to do this. So I kind of just cherry picked some things that are my favorites. Solstice Praxis. Tomties. So everywhere around the world, every culture, everywhere has, we should do an entire thing on just like gnomes or fairies, just things like this, because that's a whole topic unto themselves. But just suffice it to say that everywhere in the world, every culture has gnomes. Every culture also has fairies. They're not the same thing, and there's a distinction in every single culture that keeps them separate, right? So, and maybe if everyone across time and space and history has considered these beings real, maybe they are real. You know what I mean? Like that, whatever, that's a whole other topic. But I believe they're real. I've seen one. I've seen them, let me put it that way, more. They, and tomties specifically are kind of these very handsomely dressed little gnomes. And this is the Nordic name for them. So these guys generally live on property. So they're not necessarily, I wonder about that. Maybe they are house elves now per se, or house gnomes. But I don't think they really started out that way. Maybe in our urbanization and in our migrations, they have kind of moved into our homes a little bit more. But suffice it to say, they're somehow associated with your property. So they've lived there before you got there, and now you're there. And so you kind of inherit this little guy that's also on your property or wherever you live. Hi, Sam. So throughout the year, there's always kind of these moments where you should honor, leave out an offering, do something for your more than human housemate. Definitely on Solstice Eve. So the tradition for the tomties is that you leave a bowl of porridge out, and they love a little butter in their porridge. I mean, who doesn't? So what is porridge? I mean, that could be like That could be cereal. You can make some like congee. You could have some oatmeal. I don't know, you know, whatever you have, some kind of like cooked grains with a bit of butter. How do you leave it out? Make a little bowl. You can either make it along with how you're having dinner and set an extra little table setting for the guy. And then kind of they energetically like feast with you. You can leave it out overnight. If you have pets that will eat said porridge, then I wouldn't do that, or, you know, mice or whatever. I love this Frazetta. this was on Frazetta Girls on Instagram today. And I was like, this could not be more perfect. So here she is with her extraordinary buttocks, feeding a little gnome. So you can get into right relationship. So this is all about just getting into right relationship with your house elf or a gnome or a land property gnome. And, you know, why are you doing this? Well, they watch out for your stuff, right? So they can either fuck up your house or they can like make everything work out for you. So, you know, what have you done for them lately? Nothing, right? So it's high time you make them some porridge. So it's really simple. I love stuff like this because it really just kind of, again, puts you in right relation with the spirits that live around you constantly and energetically feeds the spirits so that they in turn will help you. Awesome. And I love it. I love it. So that's a good one. Another like little thing you could do. This is for the fairies. You can leave a little bit of either a sweet wine or something out kind of either on your house altar or somewhere overnight for them to drink too. Similar kind of idea. They like mead, you know, tomties like mead, things like that. So if you don't want to make a whole porridge, I would suggest doing a porridge of some type for this special event on winter solstice. But if you want to make a regular kind of offering to your house elf or gnome, property gnome, I say house elf because we have a house elf. So, and I like offering the house elf things. So the house elf really likes things like, you know, like I said, mead or sweet wine or some kind of liqueur. You just kind of put that out on a regular basis. Fridays, Venus Day is always a nice day for things like this. But for special occasions, you want to kind of make him something special. This is the same idea, obviously, as like leaving cookies out for Santa, right? Like same thing. What is Santa? Just a giant like guy like this. All right. Promised we'd get back to this. And here she is. So in Hungarian, Luca nap, that's what that says. It says Luca nap, which is St. Lucy's Day. Luca nap is kind of a big deal in Hungary. And it's actually a big deal throughout Europe. Any kind of Catholic country really celebrates December 13th. Of course, celebrations of saint feast days happen more regularly in Catholic countries. So there's different kinds of things that happen throughout the year for feast days. But this one in particular is pretty ubiquitous. And so I'll just quickly go over her story again. So she was a Roman citizen. She was a young girl and pledged her virginity to God, you know, and she was a fresh Christian back in those days. It was really before Rome Christianized in any kind of meaningful way. So most people in Rome were not Christians yet. So she was betrothed to some Roman guy, totally normal Roman dude, and she didn't want to do it. Like literally also didn't want to do it. And so it got reported to the governor of the province where she was living. And then he just decided to be a jerk about it and was like, well, we'll just send her to the brothel and then she doesn't have a choice. And, but she wouldn't move. She wouldn't, like the guards came to take her away and she was rooted to her spot. And so they lashed her to like a team of oxen and they couldn't budge her either. And then they were like, screw it, we'll just set her on fire. And so they piled up a bunch of wood around her and that didn't burn. And so finally someone was like, we're done. and just stabbed her in the neck. So if you see this gorgeous statue below here, that is St. Lucy in Sicily, that is a dagger sticking out of her neck. I really love saint iconography. So that's a dagger sticking out of her neck. And as you can see, there she is, she's holding a plate of her own eyeballs. So the eyeballs is kind of like a weird, it's unclear when exactly that happened, but the eyeballs happened somewhere along in her story trajectory, where part of the process of trying to get her to move, she either gouged her own eyeballs out or they gouged her eyeballs out. So when she died, she didn't have eyeballs, but then when they went to bury her, she suddenly had eyes again. So she's actually, she of the reappearing magical eyes. So she's the patron saint of people with vision problems, which I love. Anyway, how do you celebrate St. Lucy's Day? Lucanap. So I remember learning this. I grew up doing a lot of Hungarian customs. I was part of a Hungarian it was a dance group, but we also did a lot of studies on folk traditions, folk songs, along with learning all of the traditional folk dances. We learned we learned all of the traditions that went along with each of the villages and regions and kind of all this stuff. So I very distinctly remember learning about Lucanap, that it was kind of a big deal. And if you're reading any of this before I get to it, then you will obviously distinctly realize this is extremely pagan iconography, as is most everything to do with Roman Catholic saints, but you gotta love it. So here's what you do. On December 13th, there are exactly 12 days between December 13th to Christmas. Now, obviously, there aren't 12 days between now and Christmas anymore, but this is some of these things I think you can kind of fudge if you wanted to do any of them today. Now, that wheatgrass on that image is sitting on my table over here, and I planted that on the 13th, and that is what it looks like now. So, but even in a few days, wheatgrass grows extremely quickly. So you can do this you can do this today. If you do sprouts, if you want to have any kind of, if you'd like to do this, if you've got sprouts at home, or if you've got any kind of like wheatgrass stuff at home, this is easier. You're going to the store later, super easy. You just take some soil, just like that, and you really, like, I soaked the wheatgrass, or I cheated a little bit. I soaked the wheatgrass overnight ahead of time just to make sure that they would really kind of do their thing. But it works even if you just stick them in there. So you stick them in there, put a very small layer of soil on top, water the crap out of it so they're nice and wet, and then just keep watering it every single day. And in 2 days, you'll have sprouts. Really a day and a half, so you'll see stuff growing. And in like 3 or 4 days, you'll already have green on top. So you can even do this from now until Christmas, and growing this symbolically. And if you'd like to, you can do it from now, just like a Yule celebration, which will be to the 1st, right? So you could go from today till the 1st and get the full, I think that's 12 days, kind of. Almost. So you can get the full kind of growth cycle of the wheatgrass in that time period, and that will assure that you have a fertile and abundant new year. Now, the 12 days is also really interesting. And again, I think you can do, if you just start this now till the 1st, it kind of works. But from the 13th to Christmas, there's 12 days. You watch the weather on each day and you kind of write it down. And it's a good indication of what each month of the year is going to be like weather-wise. I love that. Love. This is great. So you write 12 names of potential lovers on strips of paper. Now, you can do this one of 2 ways. You make muffins and you bake those pieces of paper, one in each of the muffins. Each day you eat a muffin. Whatever you're left with on Christmas Day is who is going to, the name of the lover you will take this coming year. Same thing, you can burn each one of those and then end up with a strip of paper by the end, and that's going to be your person. So I think this kind of, whether it's lovers or not, you can kind of, if you have a choice you want to make, And you kind of want to leave it to this divinatory sort of element. This also works in that kind of way. So whether it's names, whether it's choosing where you want to move to, I don't know, what, like different kinds of stuff. Like you can do this with, so it's a fun idea that you can work on in a lot of different ways. It's just kind of this, leaving it up to chance as you move through this time from point A to point B. And then I love this one, which is you build a stool. So I don't know if you noticed, my wheatgrass is actually on a tiny baby stool. I did not build that, but I have one. So it sat on there as kind of a nice symbolic nod. You build a stool, stand on it at church, and you somehow can identify the witches. This is slightly unclear how that works, but then you have to burn the stool on Christmas Day. Hilariously, there is a tradition in Italy called La Befana, which is literally the witch. And Befana is kind of a naughty / benevolent witch, and she'll leave, very similarly to kind of what Saint Nicholas through the Krampus does, will leave goodies or gag gifts or naughty things for children, depending on how good they were. So there's an interesting kind of there's an interesting correlative between this time of year again and kind of witchcraft, sorcery, and kind of not necessarily the forces of darkness per se, depending, well, it is the forces of darkness. It's just depending on how you qualify that, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? So I love Lutzanap is now going to be something I celebrate. I definitely celebrated this year. It's going to be something I do every year, but you can take tidbits of this and still apply them for today. And then this is just, oh, shucks, I forgot to change so this is modern Yule, if you will. And again, there's like a bazillion different ways to do this. So just kind of basics. If you would like to set up an altar, the altar should contain the 4 elements in some way, shape, or form. And if you'd like to add kind of ancestors or spirit somehow, you can take spirit literally and pour spirits. Really love rum, really strong, heavy rum. It's weird, but they love it. So if you've got some really strong rum, use that for the spirits, for the spirit element. Those are all the same word for a reason. So that's an easy one to do. And then you can have something that represents earth, something that represents water, fire, and air, right? Cleansing ritual. Like I mentioned earlier, take a bath. That's an easy one. Or a ritual shower. If you don't have a bathtub, you can do whatever. Clean your house, finish things, find closure. So wrap shit up, like we're literally wrapping presents, most of us right now. So that's an interesting kind of wrapping up sort of scenario, but also like take a moment to finish some projects that are just kind of sitting there that need some closure. It's kind of a nice clearing so that there's space for all of the things that we are bringing forth into the world to manifest without having strings attached to things that aren't finished yet. You smudge, well, you can always smudge. That's a good, anything with contemporary witchcraft, you can smudge and you're halfway there. I like it with mistletoe or pine or some kind of, seasonally specific thing. Yule log, burn it if you can. Or, that's why the internet is great. You can just watch a Yule log burning. There's that like YouTube where it's burning for like 24 hours, crackling logs on the fire, do what you can. Modern technology is great. I think I like this because we kind of just briefly talked about the Holly King and the crone. So this idea that the year is coming to a close, right? Like if you think about, we don't see this too often anymore, but I definitely remember when I was little and in old movies for sure, picturing the year as an old man and the new year as a baby, right? When we're looking at like New Year's Eve, similar idea. So the old year is coming to a close, the new year is coming through. So for a lot of contemporary pagans, that means the Holly King versus the Oak King and the crone versus the maiden. So that's a whole interesting archetype by itself, but it also is the same kind of idea of, what is alive and prospering at a time of year where it is lean, where it is dark, where there isn't much, so it's the holly. Holly is a really intense plant. It's a tree, actually. We have 2 of them randomly in the backyard. I had no idea. I always just saw them as like things you get at the store. I never realized that like a holly is literally a giant tree. They're amazing. So holly is really like, it survives anything kind of thing. The crone, of course, is like the old woman, kind of symbolizing this time of year. And then the oak king is robust. Oaks are the king of trees. They grow in real intensity and robustness. And the maiden, of course, is ripe with fertility. Have a Yule feast. I think that was one of my favorite through lines, like throughout all of this. It's feasting is an important thing right now, right? Like you have to nourish yourself. You've got to, whether it's with a group of people, even if it's just you, take the time and have a feast, and really go for it. I personally, I love cooking. So feasting is one of my favorite things. And I usually spend all of Christmas Eve, the whole day, cooking a meal for just us. And it's like my favorite thing to do. Wishing ritual. So much like we just did with the water, you can actualize things like that a little bit more. So kind of going along with the use your cauldron. So you can burn the things you want to let go of is always very powerful. Making a wish bottle for what you bring into the world. So much like a witch bottle, you just take a bottle, you stick a bunch of stuff in it. You can make sigils, you can put crystals, flowers, whatever, and just write in there what you would like and go for it. And then I think just kind of a last but not least, again, feast. This goes along with nourish your body. So whether that is a ritual bath, whether that is a ritual cleanse of some type, but you don't want to deplete, you want to add. Right now is the time to, just like the Dongji Festival, right? It is the time for yang foods, for warm foods, for all of the things that kind of, as it were, put meat on your bones. It's nourishing, it's building, it's making sure that we survive through this darkness into the coming year. And celebrating is very important. We're doing that right now together, which is wonderful. And I hope, you all continue to celebrate through this time in the upcoming days and week. And I'm really paraphrasing here, but that we shall not go quietly into the night. That's this idea that, especially like thinking of like merrymaking and celebrating, right? It's making noise. It's bringing life into a time of darkness, and not, just reveling in that experience of being alive, and celebrating that, in many ways, like Lisette's song, right? Like celebrating that death will not take us yet, right? Honoring the spirits, the land, the gods, the goddesses. So however that makes sense to you, definitely honor the house spirits, honor your ancestors in some way, shape, or form. Remember who they are. That could be anything from, your actual grandparents or great grandparents. That could going back to the marsupial rodent that is in your past somewhere, or the paramecium, that was here at the dawn of time. So that could be, I like thinking of my ancestry all the way back, to kind of the first cells that did shit and decided to live. So that is our true heritage, right? So kind of think about honoring that legacy of what life has done to get you to this point. Is kind of amazing. Nourish and enchant your fertile and abundant future. So we live in an enchanted world all the time. It's just up to us to see it that way. And enchantment is something that we can carry with us at every moment and every day. And seeing that the world is alive we are not the only ones living, right? The world is alive with us. And the world, everything in the world is alive and aware and looking back at us as we're looking at them. And enchanting how we want our lives to be, how we dream our futures to be, by asking and incorporating the world around us to help us on our journeys will get us there. And thinking of the different ways and little actions that we can do, like growing the wheat, like, you know, writing wishes down, right? Like any of these little things are small acts of kindness to your future self. And they also bring that presence of your wishes, of your dreams, of your abundance into the future as you consecrate them in the now, right? And so taking care of house spirits, taking care of ancestors, taking care of your own body, as it you know, lives in this environment is how we get there. Yeah. So that concludes today's solstice extravaganza. And I just want to thank everybody for being here. And I would love to, if anyone is called, I would love to hear how you celebrate the solstice. Either write it in the comments or say it out loud. I'd love to hear it. And or this time of year, it doesn't have to be solstice. It's just this time of year in general. If you have any traditions or things you'd love to share, I would love to hear them. But thank you all so much, and happy solstice, and happy turning point, and happy conquering the darkness, and happy bringing forth the light.